Hello and welcome to the American Patriots Channel. I am so glad that you could join me here today because together we can finally stop the epidemic of gun violence in America. Americans have been living in fear and witnessing the taking of innocent lives for far too long. Enough is enough. Later in this video, you will learn how we can effectively and significantly reduce gun violence and prevent tragedies such as these. In Uvalde, Texas, Salvador Ramos entered the Robb Elementary School and killed 2 teachers and 19 little children. And in Buffalo, New York, Peyton Gendron murdered 10 people at the Tops supermarket. Both shooters were 18 years old. Both passed background checks, legally purchased guns, and then used those guns to commit mass murder. To start with, let's look at the numbers. Over 40,000 Americans lose their lives due to gun violence each year, and that number is increasing. Americans experience more gun violence by far than any other country in the entire world. You may not know this, but about 60% of those deaths are suicides and 40% are homicides. Clearly, we must do something about this, but what? Thus far, we have not been able to find a way to effectively reduce the violence. Why is that? It is because we have become polarized, leaving essentially no middle ground, so very little can be accomplished. One side wants to severely reduce the availability of guns by stopping the sale of some, or going even further and completely taking guns away. The other side is comprised mainly of gun owners who are concerned that any new restrictions will eventually lead to them having to surrender their firearms. But let's be clear, everyone is in favor of stopping gun violence, both the gun owners and the non-owners alike. I am a gun owner and want nothing more than to end this nightmare. So how do we break this deadlock? If we continue to go after the guns, at best, we will see little progress for these reasons. First of all, there's the Second Amendment, which limits what can be done. Also, if we go after the guns, that will only strengthen the division between the two sides, making compromise even more difficult. Right now, there are 400 million guns in America. It's virtually impossible to significantly reduce that number. Even if we narrow our focus to just one type of gun, such as assault rifles, there are over 20 million of those in circulation. In the end, there are so many guns out there that whatever we do to reduce their numbers, criminals will still be able to get their hands on them. The most effective way to reduce gun violence is to shift our attention away from the guns and focus on the people who use them to take innocent life. In other words, work to keep guns out of the wrong hands. First and foremost, we need to respect the Second Amendment, the right of law-abiding citizens to keep and bear arms. They are not causing harm. Who then are the people who fall into the category of wrong hands? There are the mentally unstable, those who are prone to commit suicide or mass murder. There are the criminals who commit violent acts. And there are the children who lack the maturity to handle a firearm without adult supervision. I used to work in a nuclear power plant, and our number one goal was to prevent accidents. We had multiple barriers in place, but we realized that if those barriers were like Swiss cheese with holes, then one day the holes would line up and we would have an event. Our current gun laws are like Swiss cheese, and we need to plug the holes. Here's how we do that. First, we need a national firearm owner's license. It would be required to buy guns and ammunition, including both in-store purchases and private sales. To get a license, a person would have to go through a thorough background check and a mental health screening. Would a firearm owner's license have prevented the mass shootings in Uvalde and at the Top supermarket? Oh, yes, it would, because I can assure you that those nut jobs would not be able to pass a mental health screening. One hole plugged. Number 2, raise the age to purchase firearms and ammunition to 21. This would also have prevented those mass murders because both shooters were under the age of 21. 2 holes plugged. Number 3, establish a waiting period to purchase firearms. This change is designed to help those who are buying a gun to take their own life. It would provide time for the crisis to pass and just might save a life in the process. A recent study concluded that hundreds of lives would be saved each year if we had a national waiting period. Number 4, require safe storage of firearms to prevent unauthorized access. 380,000 guns are stolen in America each year. That's about 1 every 90 seconds. Many of those guns end up in the wrong hands. Also, children can get their hands on a gun if it's not secured in the home. I live in Columbia, South Carolina. In this city, in the last 5 weeks, in just one school district, there have been 4 instances where a child brought a gun to school. One was only 7 years old. No kidding. And finally, number 5, utilize high-risk protection orders. This is where a person who is exhibiting significant risk factors for violence or self-harm could be ordered to temporarily relinquish their firearms until the court finds that the threat has passed. This, too, would likely have prevented the shootings in Texas and New York because both shooters posted their intentions to harm others on social media. Notice, with these 5 steps, the Second Amendment right of all law-abiding citizens who do not pose a clear and present danger to themselves or others is fully supported. Today, I have used specific examples to provide undeniable proof that we can control gun violence and restore the safety that all Americans deserve. We can plug the holes in a system that all too often has allowed guns to fall into the wrong hands. But these changes won't happen on their own. The time to act is now, before there's another tragedy. Contact your representatives and tell them that you demand that they keep us and our children safe by enacting these effective measures. And gun owners, I would like to ask for you to do one thing. Watch the following short video, and at the end, ask yourself one question. Am I willing to make the small sacrifices that were outlined today to save lives like those? I pray that God may guide us and rescue us from this nightmare of violence. Thanks for watching.